Good afternoon, everyone. Congratulations, Nanette and Richard and Sawazi. My name is Nan Ho. I'm on the board of Bay Nature, and it is my deep honor to introduce Megan Isadore, our local hero for environmental educator. Megan's influence as an environmental educator and expert is breathtaking in its breadth and its depth. Let me share a few examples. First, geographical reach. Megan is the executive director of the River Otter Ecology Project, which she co-founded in 2012. This project spans the entire Bay Area and has generated data throughout California that has actually changed the range map of the river otter. But Megan's expertise about river otters extends farther to all of North America. She is the deputy continental coordinator and river otter specialist for the IUCN, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, which publishes the Red List of Threatened Species, one of the most authoritative resources about the status of our planet's biodiversity. Second, Megan affects lives as an exemplary educator. She has inspired and continues to inspire thousands of people, kids from elementary school, junior high, high school, college, university, through field trips, lectures, and presentations to the public, TV interviews, even one of our very own Bay Nature talks. She teaches people, those she has trained in wildlife rehabilitation, fellow naturalists, interns who adore her via manuals, peer-reviewed articles, and blogs, just to name a few. It is not surprising that Megan is recognized for her gift as a teacher by other professionals, such as conservation professionals and teachers who have directly watched her working her magic with all those she encounters, even on a casual hike where she encounters someone curious about what they're seeing. They all speak of her passion, warmth, and generosity, and joyful enthusiasm in sharing her knowledge and love of the natural world, including our own beloved river otter. Through her career, Megan has had a positive impact on our environment. Megan has been a naturalist, a wildlife rehabilitator, a field researcher. She has also been engaged in salmon restoration and has led hundreds of creek hikes to teach others about salmon spawning. And the Sea Otter Ecology Project created the Otter Spotter, isn't that a great name? A citizen science project which has engaged the public to see and thus appreciate river otters and their watersheds. Just like Sawazi, there's a watershed theme today. She has created meaning for thousands. A favorite saying among teachers is every moment is a teachable moment. That is Megan. A key tenet of ecology is everything is connected. That is Megan. As an educator myself, I marvel at Megan's exquisite ability to blend education, research, conservation, and engage community science with her zest for learning and teaching. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to our local hero and environmental educator, Megan Isadore.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you. Thank you all so much for being here, and thank you for that beautiful introduction. Thank you for supporting Bay Nature, and I'm crying now too. And you know, it's really great to see the community out here again. This is the first time I've been able to speak, not on Zoom, for 2.5 years, and it makes me really happy. And I want to talk today about connections. I was drawn to ecology because I love connections. I love figuring out how the web of life is connected. Let me make my slides go. There we go. And how our minds work and how discrete bundles of information become knowledge and understanding that we can use as a web to help us move outward and learn more and understand more and make creative change. So today I want to talk about some of the people who are the actual connectors who make this happen. And one of my favorites is Dr. Jessica Bean of UC Berkeley. She came up with this amazingly dense, as you see here, and elegant and fascinating method of showing life processes and nature processes and how they connect. And this is really a teaching aid for adults, for children, for all of us, and helps us understand global climate change and gives us that jumping out place so that we can affect it one of these days. My next connector is Camille Dungy. She is an amazing essayist and poet of nature and race who takes us into her experience and her background and with precise and strong language and helps us see how to imagine the future that we want and how to move toward that. Carlos Parada, who's here today, raise your hand, Carlos. Carlos invites us into his close relationship with nature and with community. And he does it through his photos. He tells us he's going to work, he's going to church, and he goes out into nature and he connects us. He shows us what it's like out there, why we should care. He also cares about his community, and you'll see his photographs of people, the other wildlife that we work with out in West Marin. And one of my favorite photos of Carlos is a badger. It's a privilege to work with people who dig in and translate your thoughts into actions that connect and that expand understanding. Richard does it by taking people out on walks and talking to them. So Wazi harnesses young stewards of the watershed to restore. Nonette has spent her lifetime protecting large, vast tracts of landscape for all of us and for the natural and human communities that use them. And all of you make it sound easy. It's not easy and it's not simple. And by nature, you're one of the great connectors as well, reaching so many people through all of your work. Now, this all sounds kind of simple, but it's not simple. It's really complicated. It's hard work. But the idea behind it is simple: connect to protect. I got involved with nature, not because I was that kid who was out there knowing all the animals and plants and kayaking and camping. Nope, that wasn't me. I was that kid with her nose in a book all the time. But my family lived overseas in Asia for most of my youth. And so I really got to see a lot. I saw desert roses growing in the desert in Saudi Arabia. I saw camel caravans clopping down the street outside my house at dawn in Kabul. I saw giant lizards again in Saudi Arabia. One of these huge lizards, the Uromastyx, got caught in one of our fences, and it had to stay there for a couple of days because it was too fat. It had just eaten a huge meal, and it had to thin down before it could escape. But I was a little kid, and this thing looked like a dragon to me. It was so exciting. So there are all kinds of stories like that. We lived in Jordan when I was a little kid. I played with my neighbors. They didn't speak English. I didn't speak Arabic. But we played kick the can until it got dark, and we ate a lot of chocolate together. So those things really affected me. The point is, there are so many stories like that, but my mind opened, and I started to make connections. So we're fast forwarding now by many years, or else we'll be here till midnight. And I moved to Marin after a career as a medical risk manager for about 10 years. I moved to Marin, and I stood on the banks of Lagunitas Creek one afternoon in the winter, and I saw these gorgeous salmon coming upstream to spawn, and I was ensorcelled. I was bewitched. I could not leave them alone. So I quit my corporate job, and I spent the next 12 years, actually the next 20 years, learning watershed ecology, working with researchers, working with restorationists, doing everything I could to learn, and also doing wildlife rehab, which was really, really fun and very, very difficult. And here is a tiny salmon. This is what kills me. You look in the creek and you see this little salmon fry that's about this big, and you realize it's just a bundle of possibilities. It's one of the few that is going to survive, maybe to come back to spawn. So how can you resist? You really can't. So all of this didn't come very easily to me. Actually, I was really terrified of public speaking, and I would stand on the bank of Lagunitas Creek, literally shaking, while people gathered around to hear about the heroic journey of the salmon. But as you can tell, I got over that, and, and I had a lot of fun with baby raccoons as well at the same time. So now my life is all about finding connections among people and among organizations to support the need to conserve our land and waters. And that is where the otters come in. This is a video by my friend Karen James, who's here today. And the first time I saw otters was at Devil's Gulch in Lagunitas Creek. It was nighttime. They were slipping through the water. The moon was glowing off of them. They were peeping like otters do. They sound like little birds chirping away. And I looked down, and all 6 of them stopped to look up and looked up at me. They were so curious. And that's when I became ensorcelled, bewitched once again. So we started looking into what was known about river otters in the Bay Area, and it turned out that they were here, but they had disappeared in the early 1900s to the 1950s, so they weren't even considered to be an animal that lived in the Bay Area. So we realized there's a big data gap here. And my husband and partner, Terence, raise your hand, Terence, and I, yay, Terence. Terence and I founded River Otter Ecology to fill that data gap. So at the same time, we realized that the return of river otters was just a fantastic story and one we had to get out there. So we spent the last 10 years finding out the very local information about this species. That's not only incredibly charismatic, but a huge recovery success story. The fact that river otters thrive in our densely populated Bay Area in all the big cities around us is hopeful. And our next goal for River Otter Ecology Project is to really take that hopeful story of the river otters thriving in cities and connect it to conservation in cities, to urban conservation. River otters are a connector. They connect the urban and the wildlands, and there's no reason why we can't all continue to work with that. It's pretty good. We use community science and research to find out what's going on with the river otters in our area, to inform land and watershed decisions, to advocate for watershed protections, and to help us get students outside to learn what science is, why it matters, and how much fun it really is to get out there, to discover new things, and to use that information to support and steward our lands and waters. And that brings us back to community. We are a tiny organization. Terence and I are the only staff. So we completely depend upon all of our incredible support network. We have volunteers, we have advisors, we have supporters. You may recognize some of them. Monroe is one of them. I think she couldn't be here today, but she wanted to. And then the ones on top are mostly here today. Jeff and Wendy Photography, Karen James, Peter Bartow, Carlos, Holly Groves are all here. And these are the connections that make us all stronger. There's nothing like being firmly rooted. We are unendingly grateful to be connected to all of you. We're most grateful of all to the Coast and Bay Miwok, to the Pomo, to the Ohlone tribes, and the Wapo for stewarding the land that we live in and work on, for their soul deep understanding, and for keeping those connections together despite appalling odds. And I would say now that we're all facing a very difficult future, as we know, and we need to double down on community. I'm asking all of us and myself to examine our connections, to strengthen them and to broaden them, and let them become a scaffold for effective and creative action. Otters, oops. One of Jeff and Wendy's photos, gorgeous. Otter's recovery is a really hopeful story, and it gives us a way to continue to connect, to send ripples into the future that are positive. So I thank you all again. Thank you, Bay Nature. Thank you all for all of the work you do, which is just amazing. And thank you, everyone, for being here. And thank you so much, my fellow heroes. You make me so happy. Thank you.